Hello there and welcome to another episode of World of Tanks with Ungainly Titan. So we're here in Malinovka and it's raining. Decided before I did this video to look up Malinovka. I'd been kind of meaning to do it for quite a while, just wondering what exactly happened around Malinovka. And it turns out that in July 1944 Otto Karius engaged elements of the Soviet Red Army in and around the area of Malinovka in the period after Operation Bagration, where the Soviets destroyed the German Army Group Center. And in that he distinguished himself by destroying quite a lot of Soviet armoured vehicles. He was in a Tiger formation at the time, and he was an officer and tank commander. And he seems to have done very well for himself. He's earned a Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross with oak leaves. So, and he features in World of Tanks as one of the medals that you get for basically blowing up stuff quite a lot. There's various ranks, and one of them is the Karius medal, and which looks like a Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross, and with an oak leaf. And I was just looking at my stats page, and I turned out I have the Class 1 Karius medal. However, that aside, this battle starts off fairly typically for a Malinovka battle. So I'm here doing the usual bush camping, sniping, tank destroyer stuff in one of the usual locations. Some enemy tanks have taken to the field, or to the village behind the field, and they have been lit up by an allied tank, and therefore are visible to me in my location, and I'm able to put shots in and do a bit of damage. Keen observer of the video footage as well will notice some jerkiness in the footage, and will be able to conclude that I was also having some internet trouble at this point in time. Over the course of my 3 years in World of Tanks, I've noticed that there are kind of two kinds of problems that you can have in terms of dodgy internet. One of them is when you basically have a slow ping time, and one of the things about a slow ping time is that can be a delay, or a considerable delay at times, between when you pull the trigger on the controller and when the gun actually goes off, when you hear the boom on the controller as well. And one of the problems there is that the reticle you see here is a client-side reticle. The real reticle is on the server, and there can be a difference in the location between the client-side reticle and the server-side reticle if there is a breakdown or a slowdown in the communications between the client machine and the server. So, if you're getting delay on your gunfire sound from the trigger pulls, you should spend longer waiting for the sights to settle, and when the sights settle you should give it a second or two if you can before actually pulling the trigger, because the server side reticle might not actually be where you think it is. Sometimes of course you have to take your chances and just pull the trigger anyway, because the tank will be gone and you won't get the shot, one way or the other. But if you have time and you're not spotted and the enemy is behaving in a way that doesn't indicate that it's aware that it's being detected, sometimes, and you're finding that you're missing inexplicably, it's worth just giving the reticle that little bit extra time to set itself down. Now I wanted to push up here. There are too many heavy tanks actually down around behind me, and they're signaling me to fall back, but they should be pushing. By located there, they're not actually achieving a whole lot, and if they push these locations, there's only 2 tanks on the hill. If we get rid of that Tiger 1 in front of me, we're now in a very strong position to push right into the enemy cap circle. So there goes the Tiger 1, and I'm going to push forward a bit more, and hopefully I'll bring the tanks behind me with me. And we've managed to get rid of one of the tanks there, because I've gotten spotting damage to do it. Because one of the things that's bothering me is that there's nothing on the field, there's nothing scouting down the other side of the field. So we need to push this flank hard in case 1 or 2 enemy tanks go up the other side, the western side of the map, and slip into the cap circle before we know what's going on. There's only one defender here at the corner of the lake. I decide to circle wide. The two tigers are circling close in, and I'm definitely going to support the tigers. But by the time I get around here, he's gone all the way around the lakeside buffs there, and he's coming up the other side. Now the tigers can deal with him, but I'm taking fire from the northwest. So I'm going to tuck in behind the little high ground here on my left and just concentrate on the M6. Put around to the front of the M6, and he's made a kind of run for it, which I think was a mistake in his part. He should have kept the front of his tank turned towards me as much as possible, because if he turns it away, I can get the sides of his tank, and my allies coming up to my left can get even better shot on the sides of his tank, and the sides of the M6 are quite weak. Now we've effectively cleared this side of the map. Unfortunately, I didn't realise it at the time. Well, okay, there's a couple of tanks up above, but it means that there's two there, so that's pretty much the enemy team unaccounted for, and there's another 3 enemy tanks unaccounted for. So they must be out on the field somewhere, and I've crossed over here and there's no sign of them, and there's somebody in the cap circle. Now our best chance really of preventing a cap, there's 2 tanks in the cap circle at this point in time. Our best chance of winning this game is if that tank destroyer gets himself into a position roughly where he is, but behind those trees, and stays in cover and just keeps these guys spotted. The tanks on the hill are actually probably in a position to shoot into the cap circle. Now I make a mistake here, quite a serious one really, of stopping to fire on the Churchill. The Churchill wasn't relevant, and I should have just pushed on to try and get line of sight on the guys in the cap circle. The tanks destroyer then, instead of staying where he was when he could spot them, has now rushed down into the cap circle. But by rushing into the cap circle, he's taking fire from 2 tanks. He's probably not that well armoured, I'm not sure what he was. And he's been wiped out, and the enemy have been free to cap. So it's unfortunate, and I don't entirely blame the tank destroyer. It was a difficult position to find himself in, and it's not necessarily he might not be an experienced player. I did pretty well out of the game in the sense that I got 3,000 damage, came first by experience, first class mastery, and a high caliber. I hope you have found the game interesting. I thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.